everything I said to her, according to the way her mindset works, told her that I had to be white. But it also said something else. If you're black, you can't achieve these things based on the way she thinks, which is insulting.
Hey, I'm Dave Rubin, and before we get to business today, just a quick reminder to click that subscribe button and the little bell there so that you actually might get notified about our videos. You know, as long as we're doing them, you may as well see them. All right, joining me today is the host of the aptly titled David Webb Show on SiriusXM and Reality Check on Fox Nation, and an old buddy of mine, David Webb, finally. This is crazy, man. Welcome to the Rubin Report.
That's right. Two Ds together again.
Two Davids. We'll see what happens here. So it is actually, I just said to you before we started, I mean, I've been doing this show now, some version of this, for 5+ years. I don't know how you have not stepped in the studio. I mention you often, and we're good buddies, and we go back a while, but our paths.
Yeah, I think both our audiences are wondering who the other one is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like is you touch down and I'm taking off,
Always.
or I touch down and you're taking off. And for everybody watching, literally you and I have said, where are you? I'm landing here. No, I'm at the airport going here. And this has happened so many times, it's not even funny.
Yeah, all right, we've done plenty of that.
It is kind of funny.
It is kind of funny, yeah. So we have an interesting history together because when we got to know each other, was about 7-8 years ago. We were both on SiriusXM. You were on the Patriot channel, as you still are. I was on the OutQ channel because that's where they put the gay people. I wanted to be on a political channel.
You had to be in your box.
Yes, because it's separate but equal, my friend.
There we go.
It was an equal channel, but they had us also in the corner. It was a little weird. But I really wanted to be on one of the political channels, and I had met with all of them there, and I said, I'll do you know, at the time I was a lefty, so I wanted to do the lefty, but I said there was POTUS was sort of the nonpartisan. I said, I'll even do the right channel, and let me be the lefty on the right channel. They kept me on the gay channel, so be it. But you were the first guy there. We must have, I don't even remember how we met, probably just in the hallway. And we started talking politics, and you knew we had some differences. It was very obvious.
And some similarities.
And some similarities. Yeah. More now.
Right.
But basically, I started doing your show every couple weeks, and we would talk about all our differences. We never punched each other. Often we'd go out for bourbon or a steak after.
There might have been a bourbon or two.
I think there was a bourbon or two. And you have a very high level of bourbon. But that almost feels like another time already when people used to do that.
Yeah, and here we are today in an environment where, yeah, it's become more polarized, but I've also seen more people move to the center. And I think that people can focus on the polarization. They can say, okay, you're either this or you're that. But look around the country and talk to the people you work with. Talk to the people you interact with, you work out with, whatever. And you find that more people are starting to drift into the center and maybe deliberately pull others with them, saying, hang on a second, let's pick an idea or values over a party. And I like that. Look, I'm a Republican, and I tweeted this out. I was a Republican because my parents taught me, and I'm paraphrasing myself, which is probably, I can't quote myself.
You're loosely quoting yourself?
Loosely quoting myself, which is no longer plagiarism. But I basically said, you know what they said, think about your values, what fits, and make your choice. They didn't say this is your choice, because what do we get from our parents? Typically you get a sports team, maybe a religion, you know, a couple of key things, because that's what you grow up with. And I wish more people had that. I made my choice, and they respected my choice because I could explain why.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting back to that for many people. I think they're just sick of the, you know, you got to be in your OutQ box at that time, and I got to be in my Patriot box. I don't know if you knew this. When we launched a Studio 54 channel, and Dave Gorab was talking about it, we were joking. I said, Dave,
he's one of the execs.
One of the execs at Sirius, so we both know, great guy. And the guy I call my boss. And he says, you can't do Studio 54. And it wasn't a bad thing. He goes, because everybody knows you're on the Patriot channel. I said, what do you think? We all were conservative without a party side?
Right.
You know, it's just we don't fit, and you and I didn't fit.
Yeah.
You know, I think we knew it all along.
And not fitting is actually the cool thing. And I think you're right, it is the new thing. And people are sort of exhausted by those two crazy things. So I have to ask you one thing, which I hate to ask, but we'll just do it for a second here.
All right.
According to this thing here, you're black. Is that right?
Well, that depends on who you talk to. Is that a teaser for an upcoming?
Well, okay, because you're a conservative, and people,
right.
There's still, no matter how many black conservatives I meet, and there are so many of them, obviously, and the color of your skin should have nothing to do with your political beliefs. Somehow, if you're a black conservative, they think of you as
You're
a
an
unicorn
anomaly.
or-
You've got Stockholm syndrome. I've heard it all.
Yeah.
First perspective. If you go to a country that's a majority black country or a Caribbean island, some of the islands have more conservative majorities or conservative values and thoughts. Aren't there mostly black people there?
They're
that
all
are,
sellouts there too.
Right. So that's my point is, so you go to a country which is 70%, 72% self-identified white. If you want to look at America, then you've got breakups of different ethnicities and mix and whatever. So suddenly being black is really an anomaly? It's not.
Yeah.
Because the problem with identity politics is it's based on this box you're supposed to be in. And you and I are talking about what do you believe in? And that's the difference. And that's why I like listening to you. That's why you and I get along, because we found our similarities, our differences, and we respect the fact that people come at things from different lanes. And a lot of times they want to get to a similar end, similar solution.
Yeah.
The ones that don't want to get to the end of the highway, don't want to get to the end of, this series of lanes, they're the ones that are dishonest.
Yeah. And those are usually the ones that want to control you somehow.
Yeah, because come on, you're Dave. You're supposed to think this way, and you look a certain way, and wow, why are you this way? But you know what? More people over the years you've known me. When I did the night show, and whether it was talking politics or values or talking about drinking a bourbon on the air or having a piece of pizza, people came along for what was there in the show. And then I would hear from them, wow, I finally saw you on TV, you're black. And then their next comment, it doesn't matter to me.
So there's an incredible, I think one of the most incredible moments in media in the last year happened on your show. This is about 6-7 months ago, something like that?
Yeah, it's about 7, yeah.
Yeah, you had Areva Martin on. Areva Martin's a CNN contributor. I'm friendly with her. She was on my show a couple of years ago on the Rubin Report. And she's a progressive. She went on your show, and, why don't we just play the audio?
I've chosen to cross different parts of the media world, done the work so that I'm qualified to be in each one. I never considered my color the issue. I considered my qualifications the issue.
Well, David, that's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege and things that you have the privilege of doing that people of color don't have the privilege of.
How do I have the privilege of white privilege?
David, by virtue of being a white male, you have white privilege. This whole long conversation, I don't have time to get into it.
Areva, I hate to break it to you, but you should have been better prepped. I'm black.
Okay, then I stand.
See, you went to white privilege. This is the falsehood in this. You went immediately with an assumption. Your people, obviously, or you didn't look. You're talking to a black man who started out in rock radio in Boston, who crossed the paths into hip-hop, rebuilding one of the greatest black stations in America, and went on to work for Fox News, where I'm told apparently blacks aren't supposed to work, but yet you come with this assumption and you go to white privilege.
David,
that's actually
David,
insulting.
It is, and I apologize because my people gave me wrong information. They told me
the whole white privilege thing is insulting.
David, can I apologize and correct the record? I want to apologize. I was given wrong information about you, and I apologize.
But based on my color, you were going to something that I was part of, and just to add to it, my family background is white, black, Indian, Arawak, Irish, Scottish. I mean, it's so diverse. I'm like the UN when it comes to this. And this is part of the problem with driving a narrative around a construct like white privilege. Privilege is one thing. We're applied wealth, economy, various social factors, but not necessarily determined by color of skin.
To me, that is everything I've spent the last few years of my life talking about in a perfect wrapped package.
It was a gift on a slow Tuesday. It really was. So let me give the quick version, of the backstory to this. One, they pitched my producers to come on my show. And when you get a pitch, you look up your guest. You go, okay, what have they written? What stories? What have they appeared? Google. Come on. Whatever search engine. You get some information, and somewhere along the way, you'd find out that, that's the David Webb, happens to be a black guy. That's not what happened here. They pitched me. She came on. We had I will say this, we had a good conversation about William Barr's nomination and everything, and the differences of opinions on jurisprudence and other things. And then it went to this idea where we talked about success and all of these issues that led to her commentary. And I said to her, look, I started out, my color wasn't the factor. You just heard that. Started out in rock radio, went through all these things. And I realized after, when I went back, I listened to everything I said to her according to the way her mindset works, told her that I had to be white. Mm-hmm. But it also said something else. If you're black, you can't achieve these things based on the way she thinks, which is insulting.
It's sad.
It's a soft bigotry of low expectation based on the color of your skin. And then everybody's heard it. She threw her team under the bus.
Yeah, they didn't. The line though that her team didn't inform her. As if that is that what they're supposed. Well, maybe in the progressive world they go, well, this person's gay and this person's black.
Right.
That actually would be a cohesive way to go on a show. Right?
But can you imagine what happened? She's there doing an interview. Did somebody go and slide a piece of paper over that said he's white?
Yeah.
And now you've got a white guy. She heard the things that fed what she expected of a white person, but never thought anyone can achieve this. And that's the difference between me, you, and her.
So I don't want to in any way, so she's not here to defend herself, so I don't want to make this too much about her, but that mindset, do you think that after you said, well, I'm black and the rest of it, do you think that might have dinged her way of thinking a little bit? I think it got through to people online because that clip went viral.
It clearly got through.
Because you couldn't see each other. It was such a perfect example of what we're always talking about.
Well, did it change her mind? I don't know. And look, you and I think agree on the fairness of being there to defend yourself. But what I did offer her was a conversation. And in the second clip that doesn't get as much attention, and I've played it on radio, we played it on television, I asked her to come back and I said, I'll offer you an hour, come back, we'll talk about white privilege. And she accepted. So my team sent an email as a follow-up requesting her appearance. And when I was asked on television, do you accept her apology? Because she gave that half-hearted apology.
Yeah. It wasn't really an apology.
It wasn't really an apology. It was a deflection, which is different than an apology, obviously. When she did that, I gave her the chance for a conversation. When I was asked, do you accept her apology? I said, I really don't, but what I'm offering her is a conversation, and I have offered her the chance to come back. And she never came back. So the story's not just a clip of what she said and why she said it, but the fact is that she avoided the conversation that was offered based on what she asked for.
Yeah.
And what she agreed to. And that, to me, is a level of and I have to say dishonesty. Because if someone does that to me, you know what? I'm going to be man enough, or maybe a host enough, or a guest enough, whatever term you want to use, to go in and say, I'm going to come and present my point and defend it if I believe in it.
Yeah. Well, it shows what I would say is just a thinness of the argument, because she could make an argument with her preconceived notions. Mm-hmm. Then once they're blown apart, you say, all right, let's talk it out for an hour. No problem. Disappears. And we often see that. You get the accusation that you're a sellout or this one's a racist, and then the second you push back, boom, they disappear.
Then they disappear.
They look to deplatform you or whatever else is left.
By the way, funny thing about this story, she's a CNN legal analyst. First time I still laugh at this one. I'm doing my show. My producer, I think it was Edwin, jumped in my ear and he said, look at the TV. Her first return that we know of to CNN was to comment on Jussie Smollett. There's karma in the universe.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
In very mysterious ways. But I want people to take something from it, not just the audio clip, which they've heard, and the stories that went all over. The story here is that offer someone a conversation, challenge them to come in, but use it to tell others that this is why you shouldn't assume, believe, or at least be willing to engage. And that was really what I took out of it. And I deliberately kept the story going from my perspective for others, not for her, because it was no longer about her.
So as a guy that's worked through the radio industry, which is a tough freaking industry that a lot of people want to get into. It's a great game.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
do it. Stay out.
It's like comedy. It's like that's what everyone says. Don't do it. But if you can do it and survive, it's pretty great. You get to do what you love for a living. I mean, were you seeing? I mean, the premise that she had there, that you would be fighting racism the entire time, going up through your career. Did you see it the entire time? Or when you walk into Sirius XM, are they throwing stuff at you?
Everybody has different experiences. And my belief system is part of our experiences are how we interact with the world. A couple bullet points. When I started in radio, I started in rock radio because I love the music. I grew up knowing a lot of the artists, so it was a natural fit. People didn't see me because I could talk about something they cared about. So I could sit down with long hair, earring, tattooed guy at a Poison concert in 1987 with Lita Ford and Whitesnake, or Joe Cocker, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and we could talk about things. And amazingly, nobody kind of went to color, because once you remove the veil by how you act, people may have a moment, but they tend to come over to your side. And when I went to Entertainment Talk, and when I did a show with Willie D from the Ghetto Boys. All right, conservative David Webb, Willie D, Ghetto Boys gangster rap out of the 5th Ward in Houston. And we don't agree on politics, but we agreed on something, which was we were trying to save people in the black community. And Willie, I got to tell you, was one hell of a good guy on that. And that's what we did. We focused on what we could do together. So I didn't see the are there racists in the world? Yeah. Did somebody have a bias against me? You know what? I don't care, because I'm not going to let it stop me. If I can't go through you, I'm going to go around you. And that's my approach to it. And that's how my parents raised me. They said, find a path, work your way through it, and just do what you can to the best of your ability. And if you have to readjust, hey, that's life.
Did you just say that slightly backwards, or do we just have a different approach on life? I would try to go around them before through them. But you said through them first.
Slight Marine in me. but the point is, maybe the better way to put it is work your way through it.
Yeah.
All right? Debate the issue.
No, you want to go through them first. That's fine with me.
But also the other point is, it's that one-to-one interaction, or that idea-to-idea interaction. I've had my mind changed on criminal justice reform, for instance. And it was by a conversation through a conversation with Bernie Carrick, former police commissioner. I was hard on this, this is ridiculous. I don't care why you chose to do that first thing, you did it. But he walked me through it. And during the show, during our hour-long interview, I said, Bernie, you convinced me. I'm going to rethink this and I'll change my mind. That's a level of integrity that I ask everyone to go for.
Yeah. So one of, I know I've told you this story many times, and it's in my book, my upcoming book. So now I can be a guy that says that. But
we're being quiet about that, except for pre-sales, right? No.
Oh yeah. We're still in pre-sale mode.
Pre-sales are available.
Yeah. Thank you. That was you'll get your little tip on that.
Slide it over there.
But I write about this in my book because I talk about my political awakening, and one of the key moments of the whole thing, when I was on the Young Turks, far left network a long time ago, and I was still a lefty, but I had this inkling that something was not right. That it couldn't be that everyone they disagreed with was racist. It couldn't be that they were so right and everyone else was so wrong. And then one day we're doing there's 4 of us, I think, on the panel, and I believe you were guest hosting for Sean Hannity that night.
Yeah, it was Sean.
And I'm on the panel with I think it was 3 white guys. And they're all going, so they didn't know that I knew you. And they're all going, this David Webb guy, he's a self-hating black guy, and he's a sellout. Give me some of the terms that you hear.
Well, I believe that Fox News Uncle Tom.
Oh, Uncle Tom.
That was the one that really, because this was the whole idea. I had sold out because black people didn't belong here.
Right. So I hear them saying all these things about you. Little do they know I'm your friend. And I'm watching them say these things, and that he doesn't believe any of this stuff and all that. And we've worked through these issues so many times that I know you are honest and decent and believe the things that you talk about. And suddenly it hit me, because then I look to this guy to my left and I think, who's the bigot here? Who's really the bigot? Here is a black man who's saying what he thinks, and you, the privileged, in your own words, white guy, you're upset that a black man thinks something different than you want them to think. Who is the racist? And it really was one of the final straws for me before I fully went into this
but
crazy mode, or whatever you want to call this thing now.
I've known you long enough, and I think I can say this: you're honest. And honesty and integrity is the core of what we do. Whether you're talking about, I don't care what the topic is or what the format is. If you have integrity and you have a point of honesty that stays there fixed, the old true north, that's going to be your belief system. The other thing is, I've known you long to say you believe in doing the things, trying, seeing what they're all about. I think I'm pretty close on that.
Yeah.
And I believe in the same thing because I've been in these situations before, like the Areva situation. I've been in the situations like you talk about. And it's because I've gone out and looked around and taken a chance by experimenting with what's the idea, how do I counter it, can I substantiate or defeat the argument? And if I'm honest with myself and you're honest with yourself, eventually you see the dishonesty around you or the unwillingness to even engage in it. And that's what they were trying to do with the Young Turks, because the video went viral and we covered it on TV. It was Fox News Uncle Tom, Tea Party founder. This was this. He had to be this. And I said, wow, you know nothing about me.
Right. Well, that line also about, because the whole meme was that the Tea Party was racist. And here's one of the Tea Party founders, and here's a white guy saying that the black guy is racist.
I don't think I can actually do it anymore. We've known each other way too long, but I'm going to blow maybe some listeners' minds.
Yeah.
My Tea Party organization in New York City, right, the launch of the original, my executive director was a 50-year-old Democrat. She still is. My two guys
She's still a Democrat?
Still a Democrat.
How did a Democrat?
Fiscally conservative, strong believer in the Constitution, that we can have our differences. Old school Daniel Patrick Moynihan style Democrat.
Yeah.
Lisa's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
The two guys, because they were in the industry, in the creative industry that ran my marketing, had been partners for about 30 years. One of my other guys, was an evangelical who'd never spent that much time in a room with two gay guys. And you know what they became? Friends.
Yeah.
So you start to see this mix of people because we had a common core and belief that this country needed to have an assessment of where it was. So I had a Tea Party group that wasn't, I guess, the right-wing evangelical, white hood-wearing, team going out there. And these were the people who had common beliefs. And I was in New York City, you know this, we have such a range. And I'm proud of that because these people still talk to each other. I still hear from them. There was an FIT student. It just, so odd to hear this range of ages.
What do you make of, I'm glad that you mentioned Daniel Patrick Moynihan, because when people ask me what kind of liberal I still believe that I am, it's getting harder to say it, but what kind of liberal I still am, I always say, I say JFK and Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And I'll say Ed Koch sometimes too.
Ed was a great guy. And I knew Ed well. He was one of the greatest guys out there.
He was a true New Yorker, right? I mean, he was the mayor of New York for how many years? Like a good 12 years?
Yeah, it was 12 years.
Something like that. And he wanted to be out there with the people.
And he wouldn't leave because he got buried there.
He literally did, but he wanted to be out there with the people, where now politicians really seem so disconnected from the people. And he had that feeling.
Well, he not only had it, but he still has it. And I'll tell you why. We have a mutual friend, Ed and I, and Philip would have receptions at his business, and I won't put his last name into it for the sake of, right, big player in the country, in law and other things. And he would have Ed Koch, and he would bring, you name it, into this room, and we'd all meet, we'd all talk, and we'd all eat, and we'd share ideas. I spend some time with Rudy. I've known Rudy Giuliani for years, and Rudy and I, again, just, probably a week ago or so, and over the last several weeks, we've been talking about mayors. We'll sit out for dinner, usually ends with cigars and scotch and having a good time. And he recognizes Ed for who he is, and he recognizes Bloomberg for who he is. Why? Because these men, while they had their differences, had a similarity. New York City. Rudy told me the story. I didn't know the story of how Ed got buried at Trinity. Because he's Jewish, and how they came up with this. They found this rabbi who explained that you could consecrate a part of this cemetery for his burial. And there's a respect between them. Yeah, they know their differences, but there's a healthy respect because of their commonality. And that tells you something. And I'll throw a name in there for you, Jack Kemp, a Jack Kemp Republican. Jack was another guy. These are men who are not out of their time. They need to have more people like them.
Yeah, but I think that those guys that you're talking about, that is that middle that I think a bunch of us now are trying to give some energy to, and I do believe it's working. So that's what makes us want to do it. But do you would prefer that Daniel Patrick Moynihan or Ed Koch or JFK return strongly to the Democrats, right? Even if it cost you guys, let's say the Republicans, you would still prefer to have an honest broker to deal with, right?
Well, I mean, first of all, I believe we're still going to win. But come on, I got to.
Yeah.
No, but here's what should happen. I think we need more real parties. And here's one of my disappointments with libertarians. You have Republican, you have Democrat. I do prefer they would come back and resurge. But I don't believe in just the two-party system. I want a multi-party system, not too many like in Israel where 60,000 people can literally change the makeup of your country.
Right, you can have an absurdly tiny party.
You can have an absurd amount.
Yeah.
But over the years, from Ron Paul, who I think failed the libertarians massively because he didn't build an infrastructure, I've said to libertarians, build your state parties, find a few key states, build an infrastructure, because in politics you need an infrastructure, and grow your party so that you can have a debate. You can have a real third party, a viable third party.
Right, but they don't do that work. They just go for the presidency every 4 years, and then it's just like...
You know, if you go for the marketing and you don't build a good product, you know what you have? Failure.
Yeah, and it's worse than failure in a way because it's then you look more ridiculous each time.
Yeah, I mean, when you get the outliers that come out and they're so ridiculous, and people go, well, why would I want to be a part of that crazy?
But do you, as a Republican, do you fear that, okay, so let's say they're libertarians, a lot of libertarians watch this show, obviously, most of my political leanings are libertarian. Wouldn't you fear that what that does then is, all right, now we get a libertarian party that's at 10%, it just took 8% of that from the Republicans, congratulations, we now have socialist comrade Elizabeth Warren as president.
I don't, and I'll tell you why. One, like you, I believe in the Constitution and the system, and when I was a kid, my father said, you know, and I don't remember the exact words, but basically real strength, real conviction is that when something doesn't benefit you, is it the right thing? You know, in other words, the right thing. So the Constitution is my guide. And the fact that we can have this debate and the ability to correct in this country, we have a cultural DNA in the Declaration of Independence. We have a legal DNA in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we have the Federalist Papers and other things. But what it frames is this idea that the country can self-correct. The Supreme Court can make a decision, the other branches can get involved with their respective roles, and we can correct things. We've fixed things in this country, and it's difficult, and it should be. We don't want easy flip-flops. So I don't fear a libertarian party that's strong. I want it because I think it can help the other parties self-correct. You know, more strength, more voices, not less, more strength, to me, is better. A strong nation is less challenged by outsiders. Would I want a weak nation? Well, I want a stronger nation. And we can weather the challenges.
Yeah.
As for the socialists, we do have an issue here in this country. And I think there is a level of ignorance, willful ignorance, and ideology combined that's dangerous. And the thing is, when it magnifies enough and it gets a loud voice and it's used and abused by many out there who actually don't even know the difference, that's a danger. Because what it does is it robs people of the part of their life, especially when you're younger, when you should be building towards your future. And once you've lost a chunk of that, how do you get it back? That's a danger.
Yeah, so what do we do to change the factory settings of how people are brought up? It's a phrase that my friend Bridget Fedesi came up with related to this, who I think it's really perfect. That basically the factory settings, if you grow up in America, are all sort of lefty or democratic factory settings. You know, we should take from some and give to the other. The government is somehow inherently good. All of these, the policies of the Democrats are just like the thing that you're just sort of basically taught. And then you go from there, where in my view, the factory settings we should all get would actually be very libertarian. It would be all about freedom and individual rights and individual liberty. And then you figure out, well, where do we actually need government? And that's why I still consider myself a classical liberal and not a libertarian, because I do believe there is some utility for the state. It's just It's just real politics, right?
Oh man, I want to jump in.
Yeah. So
I love this, by the way.
But this is what we would do normally.
This is what we do normally.
So what I would prefer is if education would get everybody to the point of understand the Constitution, understand the documents you just laid out, so that we are free first.
Right.
Then let's have the argument about when we need government. But we do it the other way. We do it that the government is inherently good. They gave you all the rights. They're supposed to give you this stuff and free this, free that. And then occasionally somebody on the right can come in and maybe move that down a little bit. But it seems to me that we're doing this thing upside down.
Decades of building a political system that's based on a career, not service. Building a support system in a bureaucracy and call it large interest, whatever that interest may be that supports the bureaucracy. We have a system that more resembles a dinosaur in too many ways, which is a small brain, a huge animal, an inefficient system, and one that doesn't recognize it's received a death blow on one end of the body because the brain is not equipped for it. And that's what I see in where we are now. The self-correct on this, I think, is more evident in parts of the country that don't get the attention. Lyman, Wyoming, Cheyenne, somewhere out in Paxton, Nebraska, in other areas where people don't wake up every day and see things the way you and I do. Don't check the Twitter of the president. Don't check Sanders' war. You know, they don't live in this. Those are the people we have to engage. I still believe, and I see it anecdotally, and I think it's supported by a lot of the studies, that there are more people in this country that, if they're engaged, are that silent majority. Now, whether they're right or left, I think they fall more in the American cultural value system. They don't fear freedom, but maybe they don't understand fully the risk and reward that comes with freedom. There's risk.
Yeah.
There's risk when what you're describing happens, when we go upside down. When it comes to freedom, we've got to realize that its inherent risk and reward is why it works. And I think there are more of those people out there that are coming to that center. The problem is they haven't been engaged properly by either party, and they need to be brought into it.
What do we do then to make a more, let's say, inclusive right? This is one of the interesting things that I find right now. Most of my audience is, it's a little hard to say, but I would say it's something like half of my audience is probably former lefties, and a huge percentage of those people, they're still like, those people on the right. Like, I may think the left's nuts, but those people on the right are really nuts.
If everybody's nuts, who's sane?
Right. Yeah.
Really, think about it. If everybody's nuts, who's sane?
But that's what I'm trying to show them, that it's not the case, because what I have consistently seen is that the right, while not being perfect, and nothing is, something like gay marriage, for example, the right now has basically, well, nobody talks about gay marriage anymore. Nobody's fighting for gay marriage to be reversed. There is literally nobody doing it. The voices in the Republican Party that were rabidly against it, say a Mike Huckabee and a Rick Santorum, really have no power in the Republican Party anymore. So I've seen an ability to be flexible intellectually on the right. What is it that you guys can do to further that, if you think that that's a good thing to do?
Well, no, I think it is a good thing to do, to evolve. I trust the Constitution, the people, to make, as a whole, the better choice. Not pure democracy, not mob rule, but to make a better choice based on some things that they do control and some things they don't control. Back in the 80s, if you had a black friend, you were cool. By the mid to late 80s, if you had a gay friend, you were really cool. If you had both, you were like, man, I'm hanging in the club and I'm good.
If we had a time machine, we could make a lot of cool people.
Exactly. But there's a truth there, because what happened? Generations started to evolve. Those people who were cool suddenly saw people differently. You know, like how teammates see each other. I know you may come from that side and that side, but we're playing on the same team, which is the American team. So as the generation evolves, the parties didn't always evolve. The Republican Party failed to engage blacks and urban neighborhoods because they had a strategy from '85 with the evangelicals. I get it. Reality of political party, right? Red state, blue state, Republican, Democrat county, carve them up. You get your wins, I get mine, we play redistricting. So the parties failed, but the culture's evolving and the party has to come along eventually. The problem is the party takes longer to come along. I don't have to agree with someone, and that's not required. neither is my offense or someone else's offense necessary, because it's about freedom. And I think the people will drag it along, which is why I still hold more faith in the millennials than people on the right or left do. Are there ones that are troublesome? Yes. But are there more of them in this country when you do as I do? And I've been to every state and I've talked to people, and I see more people who are saying, just let me live. Let me do what I can do to get my life where it is, and stop trying to sell me on what I need to believe.
Yeah, and we're really seeing that now with the generation behind the millennials. You know, the 16-year-olds now who are not, you know, the 22-year-old social justice warrior.
Right.
That,
The
by the way,
virtue signaling crowd.
yeah, that they now, their younger brothers and sisters are now going, well, something ain't right with that.
But it's happened before. See, this is, go back to the 80s for a minute. Let's go back. Was it Back to the Future?
The 80s were all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rewind machine, or is that this way? What happened for blacks in this country? You had a large influx during the growth of the HBCUs, you know, the real growth. You had affirmative action. You had more blacks going to colleges. You had all of this come out of the 70s and 80s. But it took time for them to graduate and kind of grow into the system. So they couldn't stop the march of blacks economically. Culture, yeah, historical voting, Democrats, parents were Democrats, grandparents, still there. But this slow erosion of you belong to us started back then. So Brexit isn't new, just the recognition of the term is new. It's happening anyway.
Right.
You're buying a little spot of land, you're buying a townhome, you're keeping your credit rating up. Now you're sending your kids to someplace better. What's happening? That's the evolution of generations.
So I'm glad you mentioned Brexit, because I wanted to bring up Candace related to all of this. So it seems to me that part of the reason that the Democrats are now screaming about reparations is because Candace Owens has been so almost single-handedly effective at talking to the, I hate the phrase the black community or the gay community, I just hate that, but talking to black America, let's say, which also has its limits as a phrase.
Yeah.
But talking to black people and just saying, she always says it, she says, it's the least, what I'm really saying is the least controversial thing you could say, which is black people don't have to be Democrats. Yeah. Nobody has to be anything.
You're not born with a stamp, you know. Oh my God, look, it's a black baby. Democrat, white baby, Republican.
Right. So she always says her message actually, even though she can throw some firebombs out there for sure, her message actually is incredibly uncontroversial in a normal society. But it seems to me that she caused such upheaval in the way that the media talks about black people, and that after Kanye tweeted that thing, that suddenly all the hit pieces on Kanye. It's like that same game we always see with, you know, he should be in a mental institution.
He's a sellout. He's an Uncle Tom. He's the house Negro. He's got Stockholm syndrome.
You've heard all these. You've heard them all. But it seems to me that she caused such a awakening that now reparations have become the norm on the left, when Barack Obama would have never thought about talking about reparations. And he, in a way, now is a dinosaur of the Democrats. He comes off now, a guy that I'm guessing you disagree with on pretty much every policy, now comes off as pretty center, wouldn't you say, relative to the crew now?
Well, appearances can be deceiving, and I'll leave that on the table with him because I watched his history to where he got. But here's what's happened in large part in the black community and in the American community, because like you, I don't like the segregation, but I recognize the reality of what it is. Blacks and whites and any other ethnic group in America have started to look at their personal life and their economy and their opportunity more than they're looking at parties. So the message will resonate more when a Candace Owens steps up and says, step away. What did Trump do during the campaign cycle? It was blunt, but it was, what the hell do you have to lose?
You gotta lose.
And you know what? How many people say, something's not working in my life, what the hell do I have to lose? Let me try something else. It was that recognition that something's broken, right? Somebody pulled a fire alarm. There's a problem. Everybody's running around. Their hair's on fire. Lights and sirens are going off. But they already knew something was wrong. So now they're wondering, so what do you do if you're left, then I call it the regressive, progressive left. What do? You now have to create enemies and fear. And fear works. You tell people you don't have it because those damn Republicans. I know you've been living in Baltimore with 50 years of liberal rule, and West Baltimore is a S-hole, and this is it because you're living with it. But it's the white guy living over in Howard County's fault.
Yeah, right.
All right? So,
Right.
really?
Yeah, or every time that somebody brings up, I mean, Hannity deals with this all the time. You know, if he brings up the shootings in Chicago and he talks about the black on black violence in Chicago, they tell him he's racist. And it's like,
Well, how come when the black
you guys aren't talking about it?
How come when the black criminal uses the gun to commit a crime in a majority black neighborhood, it's the criminal's fault, but when the white guy uses a gun, it's the gun's fault? Somebody please sort that one out for me.
Yeah, that would cause some heads to explode.
Yeah, but this is simple stuff. People are starting to see this. Technology and social media. You and I are, on all these different platforms, podcasts, YouTube, Fox Nation, whatever. Technology and social media is piercing the veil. More and more kids, whether they're still getting the same images, are getting more images, more imagery, more information on smartphones, on tablets, on computers. Little by little, that is piercing the veil. And whether you're in a bad neighborhood, good neighborhood, everywhere in between, that information's out there. So we have a job to do, you and I. Give people the information, help guide them. Yes, our beliefs are our beliefs. We have a right to push those out there, but help guide people to not only listen to why we believe what we do, but at the same time, go figure out what your beliefs are and then substantiate them. And technology, media, social media, all of this, look, it can be misused, abused, and it is.
Yeah.
But it can be used and targeted.
Where are you at on the regulation of the big tech companies? Because it's a really fascinating one right now, but you've got Tucker Carlson, I'll do this hand. You've got Tucker Carlson on the right, and you've got Elizabeth Warren on the left, both calling for the same thing, which is a pretty fascinating political spot. And I think maybe I told you this privately, but when I went to YouTube and I met with Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, in her office, or in the conference room we're in, I said, I'm basically the last guy not calling for regulation. I'm still trying to play the libertarian thing. I'm still trying to find market answers to this. But that's becoming an increasingly more minority position.
Why they're calling for Tucker or Warren, two different reasons based on their ideologies. And I'm with you. This is a longer term view. I don't want government stepping in and having a hand in something because you can never get their hand out of it, or you can rarely get their hand out of it.
Pretty much never, yeah.
I believe in the free market. It's a patient game. It's a long term. Somebody else is going to come along with technology soon. Artificial intelligence.
I started a tech company, man, I'm working on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know others that are working on competitive models. So whether it's 5 years, 10 years, they will have something in competition, or they will evolve or age out. That's the nature of business. And I think that can work. But government getting involved is a danger because of this simple reason. If you're a congressman, it's a 2-year cycle. If you're a president, it's 4, maybe 8 years. If you're a senator, it's 6 years. So they think in cycles. And when the cycle changes, their solution, which rarely is the one you want, is more dangerous because somebody else can come along and change it, misinterpret it, write a new regulation, and ignore the basic principles of let it work out. And I say this to Republicans, I get it. Look, my Facebook page, somehow just basically people, they don't get my feeds.
Yeah.
For a year plus, I've been effectively shut down. I literally have lost 90% of my reach at times. Yeah, they changed some metrics, but I didn't lose 90% overnight.
Right.
90% didn't just drop.
Right, and the fact that they're so untransparent makes you half the time think you're a conspiracy theorist. And then in a weird way, they're playing off that, right? They never give you any information so that they go, oh, we changed the algorithm a little bit. It's a fan page, you're supposed to pay. Like, they're always trying to keep you guessing so that you don't even feel comfortable talking about it because you don't want to sound like...
Well, the difference between
person.
conspiracy and reality for me is probability and possibility. What is probable, what is possible, and on the ends you have, the reality, which we may never know, and the conspiracy. I don't want government becoming the overlord of any publishing platform. However, I do want the antitrust regulations to be reviewed. I do want the responsible bodies with oversight that we've elected them to do to go in and say, okay, technologies evolve, companies have evolved. Does antitrust mean this? Are they acting like a monopoly and a monolithic body, and are others allowed into the marketplace, which is different than Facebook saying to Instagram, I want to buy you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if I don't like what some of the effects could be.
So your premise, your starting point, I would say, is basically the libertarian position, but then you're just saying this has gone so extreme that
we need to review
you kind
it.
of have to do some stuff that you don't want to do, or
Well,
at least,
I maybe don't want them to do anything, but
at least think about
it and go, look, Warren wants control.
Right.
That's what she wants. She doesn't want freedom, she wants control. I just have to base that on her writing since college, her papers that I have read, her policy positions.
Well, that's the danger also, because they call half of us Nazis. So once they have the power, what do you think they're going to do to all the Nazis? They would believe it's their moral duty to get rid of the rest of us. That's why you don't want the government and the tech companies in bed together.
I don't want to make that decision. And where it goes wrong in our country, we do self-correct. In 40, 42?
40-ish.
40-ish.
43?
Right.
43.
But let's even just go back to the Constitution and when it was really, and the Bill of Rights and when that was put in place. In these years that this country has been around, what have we gotten right over what we've gotten wrong? We've evolved. We've reversed the blight of slavery, the Atlantic slave trade. Women's rights under Calvin Coolidge, by the way, a Republican, and his wife, Grace Coolidge, who fought for that. Look at all the things we've done and what we've exported. We've exported ideas and freedom. The nation's imperfect because we're imperfect. We'll make mistakes. But our ability to correct them is based in something that's the core of this country. And I have more faith in that than I do in the others. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need, sheepdogs out there to watch for the wolf who's hiding in the woods. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to protect, because the fact is the majority of people are sheep. Not in necessarily a bad way. I'm not insulting all people, but the majority of people go along in their daily life. They make it work. They make the economy work, the engine work. They drive the trucks, work in the stores, work on Wall Street. But sheepdogs are the ones who look out for what's right and what's wrong, even if they don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. And we need more of that sheepdog approach.
Yeah, well, we need a little bit of, let's think about what we might be getting ourselves into instead of knee-jerk responses.
Look beyond what you think. That's why I'm afraid, I'm afraid of politicians in this sense. They think in cycles. And we need long-term thinking. If a company makes a decision economically on a factory or something based on a 20 to 30-year projection of trends and supply lines and distribution and avenues for their products, whatever the case may be, why are we thinking in 2, 4, and 6-year periods? That's incredibly short-sighted and dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's something we ought to consider.
So you're basically a Trump guy, right? Fair to say?
I am a Trump supporter, and knowledge of him before he was president and now, and what I do or may not disagree with or agree with, but I have seen him do something amazing in this country. He broke the emergency glass and said, they're not working for you. He didn't say Republicans, they're not working for you, Democrats, they're not working for you. Came down the escalator and said, folks, it's not working. That's how I see him.
Yeah. Is there anything that just personality-wise or anything that worries you, or do you feel it's a little playing with fire or something like that?
No,
because for all the lefties that I told you about before that are saying, okay, conservatives, we got you, you're not what we thought, libertarians, you're certainly not what we thought. There's this other firewall or something that's related to Trump that I think
anybody big a figure, he exaggerates at times. I've had private conversations, I've had public interviews. So I see him in different ways. I've seen him also in ways that I wish more people would recognize. I wrote an article about his interaction with a terminal cancer patient. He didn't even know I was right. Actually, I didn't know I was writing it, but I kind of made that interaction happen, and no cameras, no nothing. So I've seen different sides of him. The tweeting at times, I'm like, I would have done it better, different. I can actually tell him, I would have done it better. Okay, really.
But people always say that it's the tweeting that they can't get over. But it's like he did break the system by tweeting. So
Obama had a Twitter account. Trump weaponized it.
Yeah.
He made it a weapon because Otherwise, he would be constantly assailed and have no outlet. And media failed here, because if media was fair, I really believe there would be less of this barrage. If you've been under assault, and he has been under assault, and he's a counterpuncher. And yes, he's big, and look, bigger than life television personality as a whole, who he is from his younger. I kind of go, that's it. But what I do is I go underline, like the river. There's this big, rough water up top. And then you go along there and you see what runs deep. The policies, the work being done by the agencies, HUD, the Small Business Administration, changes in regulation, unleashing parts of America that need to build, that can outlast his presidency. Full disclosure, I'm part of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, founded by Forbes, Kudlow, Laffer, and more. And before Trump, we were working on this pro-growth policy approach. We all have our roles. I'm not the economist. I can convey the policy message. But this is what was put in place. Bring in a team of rivals, find a way to swim with the sharks, try to make it so that the foundation changes, evolves, and is better, and then let that go to work. And when you're out of the White House, because he will be, despite all the people that think he's not leaving the White House.
But I saw a meme that said 2044.
Yeah, look, there are times I just like, Donald, please don't. But when you talk to the guy and you sit in a room, and I know people that have known him a lot longer than I have, you have this different personality. And I think that's not that different for many of these public figures.
How much attention do you think people should pay to all of this? That's one of the things, when I did my Off the Grid August, that was one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about, that we all care, we want to be engaged, people that watch these shows, that watch your show, it's like, there's a beauty, in a weird way, for as hysterical as everyone seems, there's a beauty right now, because people are actually reevaluating what they think. They're reevaluating what side they're on. They're reevaluating who they can talk to. So there is a beauty to it that is under the layer of craziness. But sometimes I am worried that the obsession with all of this, the obsession with either what Trump tweeted or the latest stupid thing that AOC said, it's keeping us really off balance just as people, or it's just not healthy for a society.
No, I mean, there's an unhealthy aspect of it. If you, when I say you, the person, don't understand it for what it is, or at least try to. Maybe none of us, I think, fully understands, even ourselves, because we all grow, evolve, different experices.
Well, now you're getting deep on me. This is usually three bourbons in.
Yeah, well, excuse me, I'd like to order. No, seriously, I know what Twitter is. All right, let's use Twitter as an example, or any social media. So I go on and I throw a grenade in the room and I walk away and I see what happens, because I know what it is. It's a toy. You go out for a month and I throw something and leave for 24 hours and watch Alyssa Milano's husband go nuts on me. Fine. People don't understand that some of this isn't real life. You can convey real life using the platform, but is it really real life to you?
Whose bio is it on Twitter that says Twitter is not real life? Who's that again?
I don't know who that is, but whoever it is.
Pretty wise guy.
Pretty wise guy.
Yeah.
And social media and all these components are not that. This, with people watching, and I hope they're interacting with us by thinking for themselves at the same time, same time, that's real life. And realize that these are tools. People, they hate, you get it on Twitter. You're this, you're that. I have an entire file, but I don't keep the file because I need to know the file. I keep the file because I'm like, wow, that was pretty. I go back, clever. You need to improve on that. Can you do better? I've heard that one before. It
is nice when you get like a truly original one, and you're like.
I give him credit.
I don't agree with what you say, but
I have a guy on Twitter. I think it's Rick Rock or whatever, and he's a Jersey guy, and he will occasionally come at me. But when I put up something and he has the guts to say, "Yeah, okay, I can think of that," and then 5 seconds later, it's
yeah. I got to ask you. I don't know that I've ever asked you this. Your voice, which is an all-star radio voice, did you always have that deep, gravelly? I know you've had some surgery over the years on your throat and stuff, but did you always have that from when you were
I always had the deep voice. When puberty ends, you find out which way it's going.
Yeah.
I had one polyp, but that didn't really make a difference, thank God.
Yeah.
That didn't do it. It's just there. It's what I have. Okay, some of it, to be fair, is tired and working from time to time, and
lot of
you
talking,
go through
a lot of
that.
talking.
I mean, I was up at 3 a.m. this morning, flying through 3 cities just to get. I came across states just to get here.
Not bad.
But it's also part of the coaching and the delivery that we all do. So professionally, you and I do what we do. What do we focus on? Our delivery. And don't worry about what you don't have, because, little secret, I don't like to listen to my shows. I hated air check sessions. I hated sitting there with my PD and, oh, God, I got to listen to myself too. Really. But you have to check and you have to do it. Use what you got. Somebody's going to like it. Somebody's not going to like it. Just be what it is. And there's a lot of guys out there with deeper voices than me. They're not all named Barry White.
You ever guest host any of the rock channels now? Was that really your passion before?
I grew up
this?
with music and entertainment. Always loved music. Never had the talent to play. Yeah, I played around the drums a little, the piano, typical things. But I know music in all its forms. There's classical that I like, there's rock, there's metal, there's hip hop, but I always seem to fall into music and entertainment. When Rapper's Delight came out of East Orange, New Jersey, I was in high school at the same time DJing, so we got to know each other. When Casey and the Sunshine Band were coming out, when all these things were coming together, I was in New York for the music scene. When, late nights at the Palladium, when Blondie would come in, when Pat Benatar, Billy Squier, the Ramones, Joey and Dee, when all this thing, the China Club, late nights, Nordhoff, Robbins. So I grew up with this. And what I have a love for is I respect art. Same way you respect a painting or a beautiful classic car. It's a creation, so I always love that. I love music. It's how I get away. You get away for a month.
Yeah.
I crank it up, and I go. And I will go through the moods, man. I will put on Mussorgsky and play Pictures at Exhibition, or I'll put on the ELP version and listen to Greg Lake, who was a longtime friend, play his version. It depends. It's like bourbon and scotch. It's my mood. It's lifestyle.
I think we did it all, my man.
No, we got lots more to go.
Is there more? Is there more?
You and I, okay, I'll bet the day when your hair is gone,
Yeah.
although you do have beautiful hair.
Well, it's a lot of spray in there.
Let's face it, I've got gravel. He is beautiful.
All right. Well, we're not going to wait 5 years. How about that?
No, we're not.
I'm literally doing your
You're
show
literally
tomorrow.
doing my show tomorrow, so there you go.
For more on that, David, follow him on the Twitter, although he throws some bombs, at David Webb Show.
Hand grenades.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.